And welcome, everybody, to our live chat. We love getting together with you on Fridays and give us an opportunity to take your questions and just have a little time that is absolutely live and in person. Pam Case, our senior producer, is away on vacation today. So we have Johnny Livesey, who is going to be sitting in here with us today, filling in Pam's role. He doesn't look anything like her, doesn't talk like her, but he's going to be helping you to get the questions to me. Be sure to send your questions. You can send them in the chat, or you can send us a super chat. That bumps them right up to the top of the list. Now, there are moderators watching the chat so that we can try to get as many of your questions in as is possible. As we always like to remind you, if you haven't already done it, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, and always like the page and share it with others. Right now, it'd be a real good time to share it with others. Tell them that we are live and we're taking questions. Now, this has been a pretty interesting week. I want to just show a few clips before we get into your questions. One of them is a very interesting exchange at the White House press room when Jen Psaki, press secretary, is asked about the possibility of maybe bringing Nicki Minaj in to talk about vaccination. Let's watch.
You said that we engage all the time with people who have big platforms or profiles. How do you determine who to engage with and in what way on something like this, on vaccine hesitancy?
Sure.
And Nicki Minaj has 22 million Twitter followers. Why not invite her to the White House?
We are not always the right platform or the right voice, right? Sometimes that's because people may not like the president and they may not have voted for him, and that's okay. And we work with a range of partners to communicate the efficacy and the safety of the vaccine.
Well, the first thing I get from that is that I'm not going to be invited to the White House to be making any comments. And I'll use Jen Psaki's gestures. If you tied her hands to the podium, she'd have a hard time getting through. Interestingly, this week has been a week of a little bit of, let's just say, conflict between the White House and the pro-Fauci, you got to have a vaccination or else. And Nicki Minaj, who didn't say she's anti-vax. She didn't, in fact. She said she's fine with the vaccination, but she raised some questions. That is verboten in this day and time. You cannot ask questions. How dare you ask a question? How dare you seek information? We're supposed to simply watch that flag go up the pole and salute it and not take a knee. So if the White House or Dr. Fauci tells us what we're supposed to do, we don't dare, and I'm not saying don't dare question the authority. We don't dare raise any questions to get information to make a better decision. I honestly think the White House is doing this totally backwards, because if they want more people to take the vaccine, they ought to set up a form and take all questions for hours and exhaustively answer the questions that people legitimately have. Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. Of course, there always is. And so some people are afraid to take it, perhaps for reasons that make no sense. But simply refusing to answer questions or to deal with some of the objections is no way to encourage people or to get their confidence. I never thought I would say this, but Nicki Minaj has done the whole country a great favor. And I never thought I would say that about her. Don't buy her music, not really into her lifestyle. But I respect her because when she was essentially pushed back on this, like most celebrities would grovel and apologize and repent, she did not. She stood up and fought back. And for that, I say, Nicki, I give you a 10 out of 10 on political courage when there isn't much of it, including among people who are elected to have some. This second little, let's see, I played that clip. The second one I want to play, this is at the end of a meeting with fire agency officials out in Boise, Idaho. And Joe Biden starts to answer a question. His staff realizes he's about to get on a horse and ride totally out of view of the camera, not literally, but figuratively, and they cut him off. Watch this. This is amazing.
Address this issue that we're all facing, be it climate change, landscape resiliency, or the threats to our communities, and look forward to working with you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep, that's it. No, you can't, Joe. And you didn't see it all. It just went to black. The White House communication team cut off the feed, not just the audio. They cut the whole thing off, ended it. Now, to put that in perspective, when he was talking a little later about the economy, they made sure that in his notes it said, don't take any questions, because remember, when he takes them, he always tells us, now this is what they, whoever they is, have instructed me to do. I guess they instructed him just to walk away, because that's what he did. Watch.
Thank you all very much. God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
And off he goes. We hope through the right door. We're not sure. That may have been a closet, but he did exit the scene. No questions, even though they were obviously asking him some. And shouldn't the President of the United States take a few questions on a $3.5 trillion proposal? Don't you think that might be something you would want the press to ask about? No, can't have it. Not going to happen, because he's not going to answer questions. His staff obviously does not trust him to do that. And there's a reason why. And we're going to see it in this clip. This is when he's having a teleconference with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, and the unnamed Australian Prime Minister. Let's see this.
Thank you, Boris. And I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. Appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister.
I can't remember ever in the history of the United States when he was president referred to a prime minister of a fairly prominent ally, that fella from down under. I'm sure that guy felt overwhelmed, went home and told his wife, hey, I got acknowledged by the President of the United States. Oh, did you, honey? Well, how nice of him to call you out by name. Oh, he didn't. He just called me that fellow from down under. You can't make this stuff up. We got to play you the clip. Otherwise, you might think I was making it up, but I'm not. All right, let's see if we got some questions that are coming from you. Johnny, what do we have?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of people watching, a lot of interactions. Appreciate all the questions coming in. First off, we got a super chat from Brenda Broadwater, $5 from her. She says, hello from the Hall of Fame state of Ohio. Got people coming in from Germany, Oklahoma, Texas, Belgium, and some poor sap from New York. I feel for you. Get out of there as soon as you can. Don Schenk says, absolutely one of my favorite podcasts.
Good. Thank you,
very
Don.
much.
Very nice.
We got a question here from kind of a cooperative question from Ellen McCarter and Teresa Bradley. They say, why isn't anything being done about General Milley?
Well, first of all, we don't know that the allegations in the Bob Costa book are true. Now, Bob Costa is he is as, I guess, reliable as the Washington Post has, which is no compliment. Bob Woodward has a long history of just making stuff up. And he also has a history that if you don't cooperate with him, he makes even worse stuff up. So that's why a lot of people in Washington talk to him, but wish they hadn't. So this is in a book that's coming out next month. And so they're obviously pitching the most salacious things in the book to sell it. And one of the things was this deal where Milley essentially decided that the president, President Trump, wasn't capable of making good decisions. So Milley did two, if true, absolutely unforgivable things. Number one, he took it upon himself to call his counterpart in China, basically to say, I'll let you know if we're about to start a nuclear war. The second thing was that he essentially told all the people in the military who normally report to the president, if the president says anything to you or orders you to do anything, you tell me before you do it. Just a brief history lesson, not long, but folks, we have civilian control over our military. The military answers to the civilian commander-in-chief, the president. It is not the other way around. We don't have elected military. We have people in the military who escalate in their positions, but they are always subject to the orders of the commander-in-chief. The moment that you have somebody in the military who tries to override the elected officials, you have at worst insubordination. And you may, in fact, have outright treason, the beginnings of a military coup d'etat. I'm not saying this wasn't nothing to that level, but it very well could have been a level of insubordination that would require Milley to be fired and court-martialed for actions, because a person who is a full flag general knows better. A private knows better, and a general should. We'll see what happens. My guess, nothing will happen, because people at the top of government never, ever are held accountable. It's the people at the bottom who get held accountable. They're the ones who get fired. They're the ones who lose their pensions. Guys at the top, they get rewarded, and it stinks, let's face it. Okay, who else have we heard from?
Well, first off, a quick reminder, if you enjoy what you're seeing here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you really hate what you're seeing here, then show us just how much you don't like watching by hitting the subscribe button 3 times. Click the notification bell, comment, like, and be sure to share this with all the people that you don't want to hear from. Let's see, we got a question here from Gary Ratliff. How do I get Joe Biden out of office, Governor? He needs to be impeached. Is there any way I can get that process in as a civilian?
No, there really isn't, Gary. I mean, as a civilian, there's nothing you can do to impeach a president. You can elect enough members of Congress, and they could do it. But let's be realistic. Impeachment starts in the House, and then it would have to end in the Senate with a trial. Impeachment does not mean removal. Impeachment is an indictment. It means official charges have been brought. The only value of an impeachment, and I mean the only one at this point, is that it would require there to be testimony taken and facts presented, and we might learn some stuff that would be very useful, helpful, and enlightening. That is not going to happen as long as the Democrats control the House. It simply is not. Now, if the Republicans take the House in 2022, the Republicans could initiate articles of impeachment, and if all the Republicans stuck together, they could even send them to the Senate, where those articles of impeachment would die. Might be a trial. There would be. It would be required to. But there aren't 2/3 votes in the Senate unless something really major were to happen. And therefore, it would be like the previous 3 impeachments, 1 on Clinton and 2 on Trump. At the end of the day, it probably did more damage to the party carrying out the impeachment than it did to the person being impeached. So you really want to get rid of Joe Biden? Hold on tight until 2024 and let's elect a Republican president. In the meantime, do everything possible to get the House and the Senate in Republican hands. That is a speed bump and a backstop to some of the crazy stuff Joe Biden wants to do.
Mm-hmm. We got another super chat from David White, $5. Thank you very much for that. He's got a question. He says, Milley said he did it for Trump's mental decline. Then what the heck do you call Biden's mental state? Test all for COVID, secure 2020 mail-in ballot. Not sure what that part means exactly. But as far as what do you call Biden's mental state?
Well, the Democrats call it brilliance. I mean, they don't see anything. Nancy Pelosi says that he's the greatest foreign policy president ever, even though Bob Gates, who served presidents, both Democrat and Republican, very smart man, made the observation, not in a complimentary way, that in 40 years, Joe Biden had never been right about any foreign policy position that he had ever taken. And so this notion that somehow Trump's mental state needed to be questioned, well, let me just be very blunt. That's not Milley's job. He doesn't have that position under the 25th Amendment. He's not a member of the cabinet. So he has no role or responsibility. And he has the right to resign his position as general and as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He can throw his medals on the table and say, I quit, I can't work for this man. That'd be a public statement. He can do that and lose his pension and his stripes, or his stars, the ones up on his shoulder. But he didn't have the courage to do that. No, he wanted to go around the president's back, and that's why what he did is cowardly. If he did it, we're going to have to assume for a moment, maybe Woodward's right, but if he did that, it was cowardly and it was absolutely treasonous to do that to the president of the United States. Hey, let's take a look at a clip. This is in this time when so many people are policing others, even though they don't have a badge, a gun, or an authority to do so. There's a guy at a Target store. This is pretty crazy. He follows a lady around the store who's not wearing a mask, and he berates her. We don't have time for the entire exchange. It's several minutes long. You can see it on the internet. We have a clip of it. Watch this and ask, if some dude were following you around a store and was creeping you out like this, how do you maintain your composure? Let's see.
Immunity a threat, but
Really? You're vaccinated?
yes, I am.
Oh, you are? Because I already have natural immunity.
Yeah.
You're not going to follow me around in the store and point at me to people. So I will video you.
So we have a state regulation that.
And it's not a law. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Oh. So you're going to insult me now? So my wife is a.
Leave her alone. God, leave her alone.
This is stunning to me that some guy believes that he has somehow the moral authority to walk around a store and tell a total stranger that she should be wearing a mask, even though, as she says, she had natural immunity. Which, by the way, we keep talking about follow the science, check the data. Well, here's what the data and the science is telling us. People with natural immunity are better protected than people like me who haven't had COVID but had a vaccination. So I feel like I've got some protection, but I'm probably not as protected as my friends who have had COVID and recovered. Now, the good news is they recovered. I've got friends who didn't recover from COVID. That's why I have the vaccination. So please don't send me any nasty things about, oh, I've just followed the government's demands. Government didn't make me get the vaccination. I took it because I didn't want to end up really sick or dead. Simple as that. At my age, I felt it was the best medical decision. But I don't need some guy walking around a store jumping all over me about me not wearing a mask, for heaven's sakes. I thought the lady was, even though she called him an idiot, I can think of even worse things that he could have been called, and they all would have been accurate. Anyway, let's see if we got some other questions coming.
All right, we got another super chat from David White, $2 from him, clarifying what he said earlier. He said they will mandate COVID tests to secure mail-in ballots. Let's see, we got another super chat here from Brenda Stroman. We need a clean house. Ain't none of them for us.
Well, Brenda, I think that's true. And I think you probably all now know that there's been an indictment from the John Durham investigation. Came just hours before the statute of limitations was to run out. So it was like right to the wire. But this is a very significant act and a very significant development. Here's why. It proves, the indictment at least indicates, and the evidence is very, very detailed, that this whole thing about Russia collusion from Trump was built not just on a lie, but a lie that was created by a paid employee of the Hillary Clinton campaign who took the lie to the FBI, lied about the lie, and the FBI, even when they realized it was a lie, continued to act on the lie. Now, they got Sussman, the guy that was working for Hillary. He's going to go to trial. He could go to prison for 5 years or more. Here's the bigger question. Will they get Strzok, Page, Comey, McCabe? How high will this go within the echelons of the FBI? People who knew that this was fabricated, that the FISA warrant was falsely and illegally obtained, and will they have to pay the same price, let's be blunt, that you would have paid had you lied to the FBI? Let me just give you a little hint. If you lie to the FBI, you're going to get frog marched across your lawn at 5 a.m. with cameras from CNN rolling. They're going to bust in your house with automatic weapons, throw you to the ground, put you in a police van, and whisk you away, where then you will be given the perp walk across the courthouse lawn and arraigned if you lie to the FBI. If you're in the FBI and you lie to get not only illegal information, but to try to destroy a legitimate election and to thwart the people's votes, you'll get a retirement package. Do you understand why a lot of Americans are red hot angry? That's why. And I think they have a right to be. Okay?
All right, we got a few super chats here. We got 2 super chats from Gregory Lee, one for $10, the other for $5. Thank you so much for that. And then a super chat from Marie B, $10 from her. She says, Trump will be back before 2024. How about 2021? The fraud will be made known 9/24/21.
I don't know how that happens. I've heard people say that, and I'm scratching my head. If you know of a mechanism by which that happens, let me know, because I don't. Look, I wanted Trump to win. I worked hard for him. I thought he was a good president. You know, his personality is a little gruff, a little different. But I loved what he did as president. I loved what he did with Israel. I loved what he did for the sanctity of life. Loved what he did for NATO. I loved what he did when it came to his support for Israel. I loved what he did for the economy, cutting taxes so that more people could get better wages. And people did get better wages. I loved what he did for energy, made us energy independent for the first time in my lifetime. I loved what he did for deregulating small business and putting us on a more level playing field. And I love what he did pushing back on China. I could go through a long list. So you're not talking to somebody who's ambivalent about the end. I don't know any legal way in which Donald Trump can become president before the election of 2024. And if you know of one, please send it to me, because I've heard people say he's going to come back before, he's going to be back this month. And folks, I don't see it. I'll also tell you this. When people were saying he was going to be installed as president, once December 13th last year happened and the state certified the vote, at that point I said, even if they could prove 100% the election results were fraudulent and he was robbed and cheated, you can't undo it. You just can't. There's no process that I'm aware of that would allow it. The certification of the votes ends it. And it's, again, if you have a way around that and can give me a legal background on it, I welcome it, but I don't see it. Okay.
So we got a question, kind of a throwback in a way, question about the origin of COVID-19. Sarah Petty says, Governor Huckabee, many Americans believe Dems released COVID-19 so they could mandate mail-in voter fraud. Even Xi Jinping said American military released COVID-19. What do you think?
I don't think that the Americans released it. I really don't. There's no evidence for that. I do believe that the Chinese originated it in the Wuhan lab. And I don't know that they released it intentionally or if it was released because they were sloppy. But I do think we need to find out what the origin was and the connection to the U.S. that we need to know. And I hope Congress has the guts to find out. Did we help fund the gain of function research? Because if we did, then we helped unleash that on the world. China should have to pay huge amounts of settlement to countries all over the globe for having allowed that to get out of their lab. We should end all of our scientific relationships with China. We should push back hard on allowing American companies to freely import and export with them. They need to be punished and severely because they have wrecked our economy. They've wrecked people's lives. This disease has killed 600,000 plus Americans and 4.5 million people across the world. I mean, there's nothing quite like it in history. And yes, Democrats are using it to try to gain control over us. But I don't want to go so far, and I don't believe that they initiated it. I just believe that while they didn't create the horse, they've saddled it and they're riding it as long as it will ride. That I do believe.
All right, we got some more super chats here. Before we get to those, just a reminder, if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please hit that subscribe button. If you really don't like us, hit that subscribe button 3 times, hit the notification bell, comment, and leave a like and a share, and share this with all your friends and all the people that you don't like as well. All right, next question. We've got Ogre, a super chat here for $5. He says, "Don't panic and know where your towel is." Arthur in Oregon with $5. He asks, "Mike, why has the election issues not been addressed?"
What do you mean not been addressed? I'm not sure what that would mean. They've been addressed over and over. They may not have been concluded in the way some of us would like, but even in Arizona, there are still some ongoing efforts to get to the bottom of what happened. So it's not over, the investigation. The election is over, and that's what I want people to understand. We can't undo the results, but we can find out what happened by even in a post-mortem audit and try to see that it doesn't happen again. That's the best we can do. I know of no mechanism to overturn a certified election. Believe me, if there was such a way, the Democrats in Arkansas would have overturned my elections back in the 90s when they owned 92% of every elected office. Trust me, they would have done it. Even they couldn't find a way. And they were pretty good at stuff like that. Hey, let's take a look. This is a clip, very troubling. There's a 2-year-old on a flight with her mother, and the 2-year-old has asthma, and American Airlines booted the mother and the little 2-year-old off the plane because the 2-year-old was not wearing a mask. Watch this. Obviously, the little child was very distressed and was crying. A child with asthma would do that because she's struggling for breath, and the mask was making it difficult, so the mother took the mask off. The 2-year-old, and American Airlines threw her off the plane. Now, later they have said, we didn't know the child had asthma. You know, asthma or not, it's a 2-year-old child. Child is crying. And the mother was sitting in a row by herself. That's hard to watch for me. As a father and as a grandfather, it's hard to watch. I fly several times every week. So I understand about, the close quarters of an airplane and all that stuff. And when babies cry, I know sometimes people say, oh, I wish that baby would quit crying. You know what my attitude is? They're babies. They can't help it. Sometimes their little ears hurt. Sometimes they don't breathe right. They don't feel well. I'm never upset if a baby cries, even if it's sitting next to me, because it's a baby and it just does what a baby does. I'm bothered by adults who keep talking loudly on their stinking cell phones, or who take up all the luggage space knowing there are other people on the plane but them, or who slam their seat back in my face when I'm on my laptop, nearly break my screen off. Those people bother me. The babies don't. I don't know what ultimately will happen from this, but I hope, look, I know airlines are under an enormous amount of stress, and I'm sympathetic to that. But there's got to be some common sense applied here, folks, and not a lot of it is happening. And yesterday I was on a flight, and the flight attendant kept saying over and over, keep your mask on. And if you're drinking or eating something, you can only take your mask off while you're taking a sip. Then put your mask back on until you're ready for your next sip. Then put your mask off just long enough to eat a peanut, and then put your mask back on before you eat the next peanut. And I thought, you got to be kidding. I mean, up, down, up, down. Folks, this has gotten insane. I get it. We want to be safe. And then they kept saying, we all want to be safe. I'm thinking, I want to be safe. I want to be safe from insanity. And this notion that I have to have the cup just before my mask, that's stupid. And I hope we have not lost our collective minds. Okay.
All right. Well, we've got a handful more super chats. We can't get to all the questions that are in there, but Marie B. and the Roz Rodriguez, thank you so much for the $30 and the $10. We got a $50 from New Yorker 21.
Whoa.
He or she says, after Biden got $1.5 billion from China released COVID, then we have the suspicious election results, all the big tech bought by China, Pelosi and the general calling China, no energy independence, the mess in Afghanistan. Do you think this is planned?
I think China planned a lot of it. I really do. Look, I think China's our enemy. I think this notion that they're our friends and they want to help us, nonsense. They want to destroy us. So let's never forget that. Joe is not the guy to deal with that. I know we have very limited time. Let's take a couple of more real quick.
Let's see here. We've got a question from Defenestrate. Liberals didn't want the vaccine when Trump put it out, calling it poison.
Yeah, that's the thing I think that's always a frustration, is that a lot of the anxiety and doubt about the vaccine happened because people said those things, including Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi, just prior to Trump's leaving office and Biden coming in. Hey, be sure to leave questions for us by emailing them to to my2cents@tbn.tv. And of course, please hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and don't forget, Huckabee on TBN is tomorrow, 8 and 11 Eastern, 7:10 Central. Do not miss the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for watching us on this live chat. We'll see you this weekend on the show. Have a great weekend. Goodbye, and God bless.
This week on Huckabee, singer-songwriter Lee Greenwood.
And I've said that same thing that you said. I believe God gave me that song.
Dr. Omar Hamada dives into the vaccine debate. Comedian Hoss Ridgway. And Trey Corley and the Music City Connection perform. Watch Huckabee on Saturdays at 8, 7 Central, and again on Sundays at 9, 8 Central, right here on TBN.